Hey guys, so today we're working on page 407 and 408 on finding a percent of a quantity. So let's go ahead and dive into this example here on page 407. There are 500 students who participate in an after-school sports program. Of these students, 25% play field hockey. How many students play field hockey? You can use a model to find 25% of 500. Okay, so here they've done our bar model for us. We have 100% is equal to 500 students. And then they've broken it up into fourths. So 1/4 would be 125. 2/4 would be 125 plus 125. 3/4 would be 125 plus 125 plus 125. And then we know that 4/4 would equal 100%. So we're looking for 25%, which is right here. So how much of the bar model is colored in up to 25%? And that is 125. So 25% of 500 is 125. So 125 students play field hockey. So now let's extend that with question number 1. So question number 1 says, what is 25% written as a fraction? So let's go ahead and write that here. So remember, when we have a percent, we put it over 100. So it would be 25 over 100. We could also write that as what? 1/4, right? Because 25 will go into 25 one time, and 25 will go into 100 4 times, just like we saw here. It is 1 out of the 4 in our bar model. Okay, what is 25% written as a decimal? Okay, so as a decimal, 2500, okay, because that's what it's right here, 2500. So that would be 0.25 because 5 lines up with the hundredths column, okay? So 25 hundredths would look like 0.25. Okay, part C. Write and evaluate a multiplication expression that represents 25% of 500. Okay, so there's 2 ways that we can do this. The first way we could do it is we could do it using our decimal, which is 0.25 times, because remember the word of means to multiply, so of 500, which we already know is going to equal 125. So another way to do this is where I showed you yesterday, and yesterday I showed you that we could do it as 25 over 100 times 500 because it's out of 500 students, okay? And then that would be the same thing. Let's go ahead and start that process. It would be 25 times 1 over 100 times 500, which is the same thing. I'm just solving this in a horizontal pattern here. Sorry if I'm confusing you guys. So then it's the same thing as 25. Remember when I said yesterday that parentheses right next to a number mean to multiply. It's part of algebraic expressions. So which is the same thing as 500 over 100, which is the same thing again as 25 times. And then remember, I canceled my zeros, so I could cancel this 0 and this 0 with those, so it'd be 5 over 1. Okay, and then, which is the same thing as 5, right? Anything over 1 is the same thing as 5. So basically, this is saying 25 times 5, which is 125. Okay, I hope that makes sense because it's something that we introduced yesterday as far as how to solve it in a mathematical way instead of using a bar model. Okay, part D. Compare your answer to problem 1C to the answer in the example. Well, we got 125 here, 125 here, so they are the same. Okay, number 2. How could you use the bar model in the example to find 75% of 500? So let's go back up to our bar model here. And now we're trying to find 75%. So I'm going to color it in with blue. Whoops, let me do my drawing tools here. And I'll use this aqua blue color. So I want 75%. So I know that this bar equals 25%. This bar equals 50%. And this bar equals up to 75%, which is the same thing as 125 plus 125 plus 125. Or I can do 125 times 3 because I have 3 bars here and each one equals 125. So let's go ahead and put that for number 2. So for number 2, we could do 125 times 3. And so using the bar model, sorry, so I want to put using the bar model. So what is 125 times 3? Give you guys a second to multiply that out. And you should get 375. I think that's what I got. Yep, that's what I got. Okay, number 3. Suppose 30% of 500 students play an instrument. Describe one way to find 30% of 500. Okay, well, if we were using a bar model, we would have 25%. We know is 125. So then we would add in what an extra 5% would be. So ideally what we would do is instead of dividing this into fourths, we would divide it into tenths because then we could take half of it. So let me show you what I mean as a visual. So we already have fourths here, so I'm going to draw. So now let's see, now we have eighths. Okay, and then I'm just going to draw. I know they're not even, but that's all right. Do I have 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now each of these represents 10%. So 20%, and then 25%. It's about right here. Actually, no, that should have been, I didn't do my lines right. Sorry, guys, if this is confusing. So 30% would be right here. So basically, you find out, well, how much is 10%? Well, 10% of 500, because remember, if we put that over 100, I'm sorry, over 10, because we want to divide it, so then that becomes 50. We cancel out our zeros because we're dealing with tens. So then each space would be 50. So 50 plus 50 is 100, plus another 50 is 150. And then half of that for 25. So we're looking at 150 as the answer. So that's the bar model way, but let me show you the math way now. So 30% of 500. So which is the same thing is as 30 hundredths. Remember the word of means to times 500. Okay, so that is going to equal, so we're going to pull our 30 out, and then I'm going to use my parentheses, and I'm going to do 1/100th times 500. which is then equal to 30 still outside of my parentheses, 500 over 100, because 1 times 500 is 500. Oops, parentheses. Whoops, there we go. And then my zeros cancel out. So then I'm left with 30 outside the parentheses with 5 over 1, which is the same thing as 30 times 5, because remember, parentheses mean to multiply. And anything over 1 is itself. So 5 over 1 means 5 wholes. So what we're dealing with here is 30 times 5. All right, what is 30 times 5? Well, I know 5 times 3 is 15, and then we have a 0 at the end, so 150, which is exactly what we got when we looked at the bar model, because we had, whoops, I went too high, because it was 50 plus 50 plus 50, which is 150. Okay, so let's go to number 4. So the results of a survey show that 40% of 300 students choose recycling as the top priority for their generation. How many students chose or choose recycling? Okay, so I'm going to do it in 2 different ways here. So let me split this in half. And so one way is we're going, let me find my, oops, let me find my pen here. Here we go. So one way is we're going to use a bar model because that's what we have been using. But the second way, I want to show you guys the math way so that you understand it a little bit more because we're practicing it. Okay, so the first way is the bar model. Okay, so I have 300 students, which is 100%. And then I want 40%. So I'm going to break this up into tens then because I want 40%. So if I'd wanted 25, 50, or 75, then I could break it into fourths. But because I want 40%, I'm going to go ahead and break it up into tens. So let me go ahead and draw 10 lines here. These are not quite even. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so this is 50% here, which means this is going to be 40%. Just doesn't want to write right there. Okay, so I'm going, since I split this into tens, I want to divide 300 by 10 because I split it up into tens. If I had split it up into fourths, I would divide 300 by 4. And because I'm dealing with tens here, I can go ahead and cancel out my zeros. So that means in each of these boxes, it's going to be 30. So 30, you guys can't even see that, huh? Okay, well, it's supposed to be a 30 in there. My doesn't want to work today. Okay, so it's supposed to be 30 in each. So now I have 30 here. Oh, sorry. There we go. 30, 30, 30, 30. Because I have 4 boxes, so I can do, which is part of our math over here, 30 times 4. Or I can do 30 plus 30 plus 30 plus 30. So what is 30 plus 30 plus 30 plus 30, or 30 times 4? 120, right? So that means 120 of the students choose recycling. Okay, so we know that this is 120, but now let's do the math way. So let's kind of backtrack and go over how we get to this point. So you can just do 30 times 4. So look right here, we did 30 times 4. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 40% and put that over 100. And we're going to times that by 300. Okay, so then our next step was to pull out the 40. And then what's left is 1/100 times 300. Okay, and then that's the same thing as 40. I keep it pulled out. 300 over 100. And then I can cancel out my zeros, which is the same thing as 40 times 3, and we get 120. So look, I want you guys to compare this, which is what we got from the bar model, to this, which is what we did mathematically. It's reversed, right? So we had 30 times 4, and then we had 40 times 3. So either way, you're still going to get the answer of 120 students, but it's just different ways to look at it. So either way works because you got the same answer. And whichever way you understand, absolutely do it that way. But hopefully you can see other ways on how to solve the problem. Okay, so 120 students choose recycling. Okay, so now let's look at part B, and then you'll do number 5 on your own. Okay, suppose 20% of 300 students choose recycling. How many students choose recycling? Okay, so let's break this up again into 2 different ways. We already have the bar model, so I'm not going to change that. But instead, we're looking at 20%, which is 2 parts of the bar model, right? So we can do something similar where we take our 30 times 2 like we did up here. Sorry about that. Okay, so we can do, I'm not going to draw the bar model again. There we go. So 30 times 2, which you would get 60. Okay, but now let's do it the mathematical way that we had talked about. So we're going to take our percent and we're going to put it over 100. And we're going to use the word of as a times table or times symbol times 300, which is equal to, again, we're going to pull out the 20, and then we're going to be left with 1/100 times 300. Let me move this up a little bit. Okay, and then 1 times 3, because it's like the same thing as saying 300 over 1. So 1 times 300 is 300. So now we still have the 20 outside our parentheses. And now we're going to do 300 over 100. And my zeros are going to cancel out because I'm talking about tens here, the power of tens. So you guys remember when we learned that in 5th grade? Our powers of tens. So that's the same thing as 20 times 3, which is 60. So we're getting the same answer here, but you can see we are multiplying different tens to different ones, right? But the opposite. So we're talking about the opposite here, but we're still getting to the same answer. And I think that's important. So again, whichever way makes sense to you. So if you can tell, like we took 30 times 2, so of the percent, or you could do the opposite and do 20 times 3. I don't know if you see the relationship, the correlation there. Okay, so you're going to do number 5 on your own, and then make sure you submit, upload your work for your work completion credit. And of course, if you have questions or need me to review, come see me during office hours. All right.